What the fuck is that, Vinny Beedle?
What's up, everybody? It's your boy Scumbag Vinny. These folks right here have the biggest scam going.
And even the guys I did take money from that were new in the game, I gave them experiences that they would never have gotten, man. And people did.
Scumbag Vinny, bro.
And there was like 8 comics on the show, and they all sucked. And he got on stage, and he was like, "Vinny, did you just stop at a red light and say, hey, you want to open for Artie Lang tonight?"
Vinny Beedle's a good man, and we'll be back.
I used to go to concerts when I was a teenager, and I would sell fake tickets to events.
I've made it clear I have no problem that you scammed numerous people. No.
It's such an important part of my background.
If somebody's trying to get into comedy and somebody rips them off so bad that they have to quit comedy, you've done them a favor.
This movie needed Vinny Beedle to show up in like a stolen Ford Taurus. What up, it's Bam Margera. Go listen to the best podcast in the world, SCUMTOWN.
Vinny Beedle is who? Compton?
Oh yeah, Compton. You want a fresh piece of shit, man.
You're a bigger scumbag than Vinny Beedle. Yeah, man.
Vinny, I want you to take down the president of town now, or I will have the legal authorities get involved with you.
Now that I found out that this whole thing was a scam, I kind of really like him.
Yo. Episode 6, Vinny.
Let's go, Lane. Scamming with Vinny. We are back, dude.
We got a new friend here, Vinny. Your buddy from New York. He's here to get scammed today.
CJ Browne, comedian CJ Browne in the house. What's up, CJ?
Oh, what's going on? How are you?
I'm well, man. I'm well. I appreciate you doing this last minute. I just seen you here on my Discord app, and I said, fuck it. Let's do it. Let's bring him on. He knows me personally.
I've seen your scams. I've seen plenty of them. I've seen more than one.
Exactly. Exactly. So CJ has experience with me in person in the business before I was exposed, let's just say, before the mask came off.
Yeah, you were still playing the part. You were pretending that you weren't a scam artist for the majority of the time that I've known you. And then I remember I was like, thank God, like Vinny's actually like being himself and being open and honest. I was like, damn, that's respect right there.
Well, you know, it's one of those things, man, where you know, really, now that it's been so long, nothing has really changed, except for the fact I think there are certain comedians like yourself that respect me more, because comedians were my biggest problem, really, because people don't know when they go to a comedy show who's, you know, running what or paying who, or, you know, they're just going because it's a thing to do. CJ, we met a long time ago. Do you remember when we met?
Yes. But I will say I'm having some audio issues right now. I'm gonna leave this Discord and come right back. Is that okay? Am I fucking up your flow right here? I don't want to.
No, absolutely not.
Go ahead, man.
Yeah,
I'll just go back myself in here. I will.
Well, that's scamming with Vinny for you. We tell you we're gonna bring on a guest, and then they just leave.
Yeah, that's the first scam of the day. Do we got any more scams for Vinny?
Next up, we have So basically what I wanted to do with CJ, and what we will do, is just have him explore a little bit of what life was like, you know, during those times with me, because there are some things I don't remember, especially about myself, you know.
Well, how did you meet CJ? Were you scamming him?
Oh, he was for sure scamming. But here's the thing, though. You were trying
I feel like I might be getting scammed right now.
CJ's back. He just jumped back in.
Okay, here's the thing, though. Like, I was at the point of my life where I had already been in comedy for a little while, so I kind of knew all the red flags. So it was like Vinny was like throwing up all the red flags, but I could see them, so I could like prepare for them. So I wasn't like helpless, but I was still taking advantage, because even though Vinny is trying to suckle as much money out of people as possible, there is still other things you can get out of him. Vinny is throwing shows, and sometimes there's an audience. Like, I will say sometimes, though. Most of the time, because, dude, you would charge $20 for an open mic. It's like, what the fuck is even happening?
You've always been very wrong about... And first of all, so let's back up for a second, because I definitely want to touch on what you were saying there. Now, let's start with the first question I asked, because we'll get into all of it. We have an hour. You just ran through about 20 minutes of material in 30 seconds. So when did we meet? Do you remember our first, like, altercation?
It must have been like 2013, like 2013, 2014, maybe something like that.
Where was it? Because I have an idea.
I'm trying to think here.
Was it Box 63 in New Haven?
Yes, it was. It was the open mic that you're charging $20 for the audience members. You're like, comedians are free, but if you bring an audience member, they have to pay you $20. And I thought that was insane.
No, see, this is where you're wrong. It is where you're wrong. So in Connecticut specifically, and in Massachusetts, Rhode Island, all those surrounding states, showcases for up and coming comedians were a thing, especially during that time period where most people do bringer shows. So they go to open mics and they find 10 comics that are new, and they say you have to bring, let's say 4 people you could perform at a casino or something like that. And they would charge, a certain amount of money per ticket. I didn't do that, but I put those same talent level comics on the show and had them try to promote to bring an audience. But the thing is, it really wasn't an open mic because I hosted the show, and the show was really a lot better than most mics you'd ever go to.
It was only an open mic in your mind, CJ. That's what you don't understand.
Exactly.
Okay, all right. Hey,
because if there were people that came and paid, like I can see if I did a show where people were demanding refunds every time, but I literally ran like 3 to 5 shows like that a week in Connecticut for like 10 years, and like, so people may have not come again, but there were a lot of repeat customers. So for someone like you, and this is what I respect about you, you are more about the art form, and that's what I wanted to get into. Like when I first met you, you were against it because I remember you were doing a lot of shows in the city where you wouldn't charge any money for a ticket, which I know now that you found out later on, obviously isn't a way to do business or make money at all. So really, I'm on the furthest end of the spectrum, and you're on this side of it. And really, we just had to come to some kind of middle ground.
What happened though? Did you bring like a bunch of people to what you thought was going to be an open mic set, and then they all had to pay $20 to get in, and you just kind of walked in the door for free?
I think he brought a girl or a couple people. Yeah, he might have brought.
Okay, so there's one show where, dude, I swear to God. So one of the shows I did with you, the only audience members were my ex-girlfriend and her new boyfriend. That was the whole show. Nobody else showed up.
And they both paid $20.
Yeah,
sure they both paid $20. Exactly.
Yeah, but wait a minute. But we can't really run a show at least 7 or 8 people. Do you mean like you were? I mean, you have to be exaggerating a little bit. I don't ever remember.
I mean, I'm probably exaggerating.
But you meant
exaggerating by that much.
You're looking into the crowd and seeing 60 chairs and 8 people. You're looking at your girlfriend and her new boyfriend. I get that. But why was she coming to your shows with her new man? Why is that even a thing?
I don't know, dude. I'm thinking about it right now. I don't know. I'm just nice. People like being around me.
In retrospect, that's probably a good thing they had to pay $20.
Well, I will say,
I'm not mad at you for that.
Yeah. I will say I probably could have threw you 20 of it, but I will say, when CJ would talk to me, because really he didn't like how he comes off right now talking about how I used to do shows, Lane, is definitely how he used to come across to me. So I used to think, oh, this kid don't like me. But as we started to talk about different things, and we have for years now, I started to really love the kid. I always kind of did like him, but I really started to love talking to him, and I've been on his podcast and that kind of thing. Well, what's interesting to me is, as I would watch him do these shows throughout the city, and he's putting on free shows and stuff, believe me, I really have been envious of people like that, because if I had taken that road and not focused on the money, different things could have happened for me for sure. But at the end of the day, now that I'm 30 and now I know how to make money to do a show, if I do a show, I can make money doing it because,
Well, dude, I've heard you don't even like describe yourself as like a comedian. You're like, that's almost like secondary to you. Like, in the ways that I've heard you describe what you do. You're like, the shows are just a mechanism for you to sell a product almost. And it's like you doing the stand-up is almost like a secondary thought to like, how do I fill up a room with $20 seats?
Well, you're right about that, because I spent a long time not when I first started stand-up, I was 17 years old. So I used to write jokes all the time and out and go on, try to like read these stories off. And I just never was able to, I mean, I'd have good jokes every now and again that I would write. And most of them would end up being very corny, bad joke-ish type things that didn't really fit my style. But I really developed a talent over a long period of time of just kind of winging it and going up there and doing all improv, which I think I'm very good at. And obviously I think that way because the audience reaction to me when I do shows, even to this day. And so I guess I would always say, yeah, it's secondary, because I can kind of, as long as I put everything together and the money's there, I can put the show on. That's how I always felt, even with the open micers. Like, even if they suck, the crowd loves when I make fun of them after I'm done. They're done and I come back up. So I felt like people were always getting their money's worth.
Well,
I've
here's
never
the
heard Vinny talk about like the art of telling a joke or like the craft before. That's never been what he's worried about.
Dude,
I thought about it.
Do you know
a
what
lot.
fucking pissed me off though, Vinny? Because sometimes you do all this stuff and your main focus again, like this guy, he's even saying like he's surprised that you're even talking about the craft of stuff because you're just in such a scramble to sell as many fucking tickets as possible that you just like forget about shit because your main goal, you're like trying to sell all tickets. What pissed me off about you is when Liam and I drove from Boston to Western Massachusetts by like Six Flags, and you just like forgot that both of us were going on the show, and then you forgot we were there, and then we just didn't end up going on stage, and we just drove home. It was like 2.5 hours. This guy's a fucking asshole.
Where the fuck was that?
You were in like some bumfuck Western Mass town. It was by the one with the Superman ride of steel or the Man of Steel ride.
Yeah. I don't even remember that.
Yeah, dude, we drove all the way there, and then you just forgot about us.
See, those are real beefs, though. That's like Vinny scrambling, like just like you said, dude. You
scramble, you panic.
I had my hand in so many different pots at that time. I was telling people anything they wanted to hear, you know what I mean? Like, but you were young, man. I mean, you don't think I went through that in comedy? Everybody goes through shit like that. I do. I'm having vague memories of it not being my show, but somehow saying to you, like, I can get you on.
Sure.
You know, but I don't really know the show itself. Western Mass.
Well, I like what you just said. You just said something and just kind of brushed over it. It's like, yeah, you know, we've all been there. We've all done that when we were young comedians. But it's like you're saying that as a justification for why it's okay that you did it. You know what I mean?
Oh, exactly. Because there's no structure to the business at all. So it's like if I got to go through dog shit and everybody out there is, you know, talking about what I can do better, but nobody's doing anything to make the scene better at all, then, you know, that's kind of how I feel, you know.
2022 CJ completely agrees with what you said and, in fact, hopes that more young comedians...
But we're actually interviewing 2013 CJ right now. That's who I want to talk to. You know what I mean? Because I think you've been through enough now to see the reality of how things work. But at the same time, there are a lot more people in the business like me than there are not like me, as far as showrunners, club owners, promoters. True. You know what I mean? And so that's something that I guess would, like you said, I always try to find justifications, and that's definitely one of the biggest ones was like, you know, one of my biggest haters in the world was this guy, Pat Oates, who's a comedian out of Connecticut. CJ knows of him, and obviously I don't think Lane does, but Pat was like a club runner, and he's basically the kind of guy that, you know, does the exact same scams that I do, except because he runs like a big club, it's like okay, and people kiss his ass. And I ended up like just doing everything I could to either run a comedy club or open my own, and I would see the difference. I mean, same comedians that would talk about me would come gladly and bring their 5 people paying $20, $30. You know what I'm saying? So it was weird. It's like if you're running a show at a bar, they don't treat you the same way. If you're running a club, obviously they think there's opportunities there, but if they really knew the business, they'd know there's no opportunities anywhere. You know, it's CJ, do you not agree? Like a 1% comes out of the comedy scenes to actually make it somewhere and make money.
I was thinking about that the other day because people invest so much of their life going to these like different local shows and open mics and all this stuff. And it's like, what is the fucking end goal? Like what you're working towards, like a $50 like gig that you have to drive 4 hours for. You're trying to make sure that you have that in your 40s. Like what's the point?
Well, everybody
you know, like,
kind of has, everybody does have tunnel vision, and that's why to you, and it really probably a lot of those shows were like open mics, because I mean, I don't know how many shows you've done with me, but certainly if there, you know, 60, 70, 80, 100 people in an audience and there's 10 shitty comics of me around there, but the crowd's laughing at me, it doesn't seem like an open mic at that point. But on a night where you come when the audience is real light and all the comics suck, you're thinking, damn, this kid's just charging $20 at an open mic. The difference is I really didn't stop whether the crowd was there or not. I understood that my algorithm was I wasn't going to have a big like following all the time, you know. But at the same time, you know, when I was looking at what you were doing, I was trying to find ways to get to that point of doing the kind of shows that you were in New York. And I would like for you to talk about how you ran shows and what you did then, because I know they were all free. So it was just like I didn't understand how it worked, you know.
Well, the ones at the Lantern were like I did a bunch of different types of shit, but I think what you're missing here is I started in Boston, and I think there's like a big attitude difference between how people do comedy in Boston versus in New York, because there's way more people like you in like the greater New York area than there is in like the Massachusetts area. It's a little bit of a different vibe, and it's more like I was talking to my buddy about this the other day. A lot of these comedy rooms in New York, it feels like there's two types of people. There's predators and then there's prey. And I don't think there's this. I was just not used to that type of environment from being in Boston for a while. But then you come over here, it's people are just trying to suck money out of people.
Well, Boston definitely has a unique comedy scene, but at the same time, I think because, a big city like that, isn't they're tourist centric. I don't want to say that, but a lot of the people in Boston, there's a lot more tourists from out of the country in New York, right? So a lot of that scammy comedy show shit comes from trying to get, Canadians and Asian people into a club, that don't even know.
See, I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about the relationship between the people who throw the shows and the people who perform on the shows is what I'm kind of talking about.
Well, no, because I can find the same shit in every single city, man. I've been all over the country, and so it's all politics.
I came up in Boston, like bringers were frowned upon. And it's kind of like mandatory. That was a big difference.
You know what's crazy, CJ? I've never actually thrown a bringer show. People have confused it so much because I put new comedians on and charge money for a ticket. But I've had comedians bring no people almost every show. So if I book 10 on a show, there's only 3 or 4 of them, 5 of them going to bring people. The rest of them, I'm not throwing them off and telling them to get the fuck out of here, So it was just my style of doing things was I believed I was funny enough to perform in front of a crowd of people for an hour, and they would leave happy just seeing me, and anybody else was a bonus. And for me, those 5-minute acts that they were doing, I just felt like, if some of them were good, that was great. If they weren't, I would touch on how they weren't very funny, and it was kind of all part of that show that I was doing. But I never really ran bringers at clubs. Did I ask comedians?
I don't think you did.
I didn't. And that's the thing is that what I got known for scamming was taking money from comedians that didn't want to even bring nobody. So if I had a comedian that was like, I really want to do your shows, but I can't bring nobody, I'll be like, dude, I'll put you on 25 shows. Give me $1,000 and I'll pay for the advertising myself. And so
I love that.
That is, listen, at the same time, some of the people who did listen to me made money. Some people who didn't listen to me didn't make money. And there were times that, they probably could have made money and I got a little greedy. I'm not perfect, but at the same time, the whole point of what I was trying to say is that there are a lot more people who are respected in the business that are kind of like undercover scammers, like there's tons of them. And there might only be 1 or 2 in Boston and there might be 100 in New York, but they're everywhere, and there's a lot of them out there that if they get exposed, they wouldn't know what to do and make that shift. But I think because I was categorized as a bringer comedian, a comedy producer, for so long.
The victim complex, Vinny. Oh my God.
It's not a victim complex.
They persecuted me.
No. I don't care about that. That's actually what made the character what it is. I just like, I'm gonna start doing shows again, and I'm not. The thing is, I'm not gonna really work with the other talent. I'm not gonna work with new talent anymore or anything like that. But it's just kind of like. You don't have to. I just kind of think that, and no, I don't. I never really did have to. That's the thing. It's just I wanted to be on stage every night. So I figured if I had 5 guys out in, Western Mass near a Six Flags helping me bring people, I could still perform that night, And that was really my whole basis behind that. But again, I really didn't bring you on to combat like your experiences with me. I actually want to know about them because it's been so long. I mean, 2013 is almost 10 years ago, I
have fond memories of Vinny Beedle shows. When I look back, they make me laugh a lot.
You did come to a show at Joker's Wild Comedy Club when I was managing it.
I was just going to bring that up. That was actually a great show. It was a Thursday night show.
There you go.
It was
same formula. Hold on. Same formula as Box 63, by the way. Same city, same show formula, except now I'm running a comedy club.
And I think that particular weekend, you were able to get like radio airplay or something. Like you were able to get on like local radio or something, or you had like a bunch of ways to give out tickets. So the place was fucking full. But the number one thing that I remember from the show, that was me and Liam again. Me and Liam did a lot of shows.
He got locked in the bathroom. That's what I was
He got locked in the fucking bathroom before they'd delay the show. Because the person that brought to the show...
I'm calling him on stage. So we kind of are even. Liam, I would say, made us even from that Western Mass show. But actually, the truth is, man, when I ran Joker's Wild, there was absolutely no radio play. There was nothing different I did except that more people wanted to come and see me at a comedy club. That's just it. I was running shows 5 nights a week there, you know? But anyways, yeah, I remember like calling him out on stage and like he's not there and people came up to the stage. He's stuck in the stall. And I go in there and this kid that's taller than the stall is stuck inside of this bathroom stall. And I'm like, how does somebody get stuck in a stall? I didn't know to this day. I don't even know how he got out.
Well, we were like firemen. We were like trying to kick the stall door in. It was just completely jammed. And the way that they made the stall in Joker's Wild, it was like just too small to crawl under, I remember.
Right.
Where it was like up to your knees. Like if you were
and he's a big guy, this dude.
He was. Like if you were like a woman in Victorian America, like it would be a modest dress. Like that's how low the fucking stall door went. And there was just no way for him to get out. It took maybe 20 minutes to get him out of that bathroom. It was insane.
Right. And I think the only reason I defend so much the bringer shit is because like I am an out of the closet scammer, and I just don't want to be known as somebody who's that pathetic because bringers aren't even a good scam. Think about
it. They can be.
No,
some people got a pretty good thing going. Like Julius Donut guy.
No.
Okay, he does a lot of the bringer shows at like Dangerfields or whatever. Dude, if you have, multiple bringer shows a week and they're bringing, 8-10 people, $20 a ticket, they get 50% of that. That's pretty good money. Like that's definitely not something you're flinching at.
No, I know. I've made a lot more money doing other things in comedy, and I don't know, man. It's like, dude, you can get like look at Evan Weiss. You know who Evan Weiss is.
He's the other one. Like, whenever I think of scam artists, I always think of Evan Weiss. I think of Julius Donut. I think of.
But see, if you
Heron.
think about me,
Heron is the other one.
Oh yeah. You know what I was doing for a while with Heron Entertainment? Lane. Heron Entertainment is a guy who's like not in the comedy business at all, but he like built this whole entertainment business and like called. What he did before he even started with comedians was he called like 200 venues around the country and secured them for shows. So he had this like traveling tour, Then he started plugging the shows in and the venues would promote. I don't know how he did it, but for a while I would just sit there and call all his venues and just steal as many. I'm trying to steal as many of them as I could. I was doing it for a while, dude. He started sending comedians after me, threatening my life. He's threatening my life, It's just fun, just fun times, fun memories, But yeah, so Evan Weiss is this guy who throws like these shows Lane in New York City, and like on the flyer it'll say like, tickets are $20 each, and you have to bring people or you are not allowed on stage. Like he literally puts the stupid shit like on the flyer, and he still gets people because comedians will do anything to try to make it in that city.
Especially in New York, dude. The stage time is so limited, and doing the open mics is such a bad experience. People will pay any amount of money to get on stage without having to go through like the emotional turmoil of sitting through a Village Lantern open mic.
Right. I remember doing a show every Friday at Broadway Comedy Club in New York City at 11 o'clock in the main room. And Al Martin, the owner, would put on some of his main acts. And I would have anywhere from 9 to 16 open mic comedians on this show. And every Friday... And I would mix in the headliners and shit. And every Friday I would put from $500 to $1,500 cash in my pocket from the show. And I'll just never forget looking up in the sky in New York City, like in my prime, just thinking I'm the highest paid comic in the city tonight, because even comics who write for the Tonight Show get $25 at those clubs. You know what I mean?
At the Cellar, they're only walking out with like $50 for
$50, like the most famous people in the world, Lane, you're talking about like anybody. That's all they get in the city per gig. And I just remember feeling like, and none of the the biggest gripe comedians would have with me too, again, it wasn't that I would, throw them off stage for not bringing enough people. It was that I would overbook the shows, because even the owner of the comedy club, I remember one time I booked like 6 comics and they were telling me they were going to bring 20 people each, and nobody showed up. I ended up going outside and barking in about 30 people myself, and I did the show, and the owner texted me and he told me, always book 20 comics on these show, because a lot of them do cancel, CJ. They back out at the last minute. Actually, that's the number one thing that kept my vendetta against like new comics and keeping the money train going for so long, was because I would say 50% of the people I've ever booked in the Connecticut, New England scene canceled on me. You know,
well, they're all a bunch of losers anyway, so that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, it happens in Florida too. I mean, I've produced shows in Florida, but I do see what you're saying about Boston being a different scene, because down here in Orlando, see, the thing is, I had already become Scumbag Vinny before I moved here, so word trickled. Like the legend, dude, imagine how crazy the legend is traveling by word to Florida. You know, these people think I'm a fucking, child smuggler or something down here. Like none of these comedians want to work with me, but they don't even know.
I would think that would be like a good thing in Florida if they think you're evil, right? Like,
the people who do make their ways to me, I've met some really funny people and they'll work with me all the time, because once they see like that I'm normal at these shows, they're kind of like, damn, I don't know what people are talking about. I love to work with you. But I've done about 40 shows in the last year and a half in Florida, all over the state, and I've sold out almost every one of them. And that's what's crazy is you're just getting a lot more support here than we did in Connecticut, because you're from Connecticut, right, CJ?
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm from Connecticut, so I just feel like I now that I look back, it's like I'm kind of glad I did things the way that I did, because I feel like I would have never made it out of Connecticut had I not fought that hard like that. Like here's
the other thing too. Like, so everybody else, they're doing things all correct. But you are putting yourself in a position where you're making mistakes, and it makes you, like, in some ways, a more dynamic person. So it kind of makes you more interesting to like have made mistakes, tested moral boundaries, done all that stuff, and then move to a new place. Because those other people, they've never even been in those situations. So they don't know how to deal with it, and they're not interesting. They just fucking go to their open mics, and then they go to the next one, and then they go to the next one.
You bring up such an awesome point, because even Lane, like, I was trying to tell you a few weeks ago why I think I'm excellent at like talent relations, and I think I think the reason why I'm so good at it, truthfully, and why I've been able to work with celebrities and stuff, is because I've literally done everything you can do to fuck over somebody that's like a talent. You know what I mean? So like, I know what's coming. I know every single thing that's coming. I've told some of my best friends in the comedy business, every time they're like, I almost assume the worst all the time, CJ. You know what I'm saying? Like, if I go to a club and they're like, I'm going to give you $500, come here I always assume they're not going to pay me. And when you assume that way, you kind of like don't let yourself down, because this whole business is shitty, man. Unless you have a huge following and are drawing your own tickets, it sucks for everybody.
Yeah. And I think like, maybe for people who are a little bit more high status, because they've been through a lot too. These are people who are realized human beings. They've lived a sort of life. So, they're going to connect more with you, somebody who's made a bunch of fucking mistakes over his career, as opposed to just, some normal Joe Schmo. Especially somebody like Bam. I mean, I don't want to, how do I say this without being mean? Who's made more mistakes than Bam? You know what I mean?
Yeah, the way you even say that, you sound like him, because I just remember, I've been, through the roller coaster with that man, and I remember, basically when he's at an up, he takes me, we're high together, not no pun intended there, but I mean on a roller coaster sense, and when things are real down, he drags me down with him, and I remember being at like the bottom and feeling real depressed, and we're having a conversation one day, and he's just like, literally, Vinny, I remember Bam telling me, I wrote the book about and you have read through it 100 times. Like, basically, you're right. He does connect with me in that way, because we both make mistakes. Also, I think someone like him who constantly makes mistakes and is still successful hates when he meets people that are like, I'm never going to make a mistake. You know what I'm saying? I think and it's a challenge for him. He's like, oh, really? Well, I'll just fuck it up for you on purpose, and then we'll see what happens.
Well, those people are just, that's like a tell of, if somebody's like, oh, I'm never going to make that mistake. It's like, oh, you're just like an ignorant person, and I can just discount the rest of whatever bullshit you're going to say, because obviously we all fuck up. We're human beings.
Do you think you thought this way when you first met me, or do you think, not that as an excuse, but going through the experiences you did with me and probably other promoters as well, probably rounded how you... Like, it's kind of going to school almost for the business. Like, you have to experience certain shit.
Yeah, and the scary thing is some people don't even comprehend what's happening to them. So they're being, like, totally manipulated by the system that they're a part of, by all the different, shitty power, like these corrupted power structures that they exist within. They're just constantly being fucking sucked dry by these power resources. And they don't even know what's happening to them.
Yeah.
Like I'm grateful in my life. I've dealt with every like piece of shit, like every bad personality type I've been exposed to.
Right.
And so I'm able to.
Would you put me up there with the worst of them? Would you put me up there with the worst of them, or?
No. I don't know. Like if somebody is.
Let's feed the legend here a little bit, CJ.
Okay,
Let's fucking.
Here's the thing, though. I've never seen you in a position where you could be the worst, because to me, the worst people are people who have you in some type of position. Let's say it's like a manager at a job or something, and they just start cutting your hours, and you start begging with them, like, please, I need the money, or else, I'll lose my apartment. And they're like, oh, we just can't do that at this time, or whatever.
Right.
I've never seen you be put into a position that is so like an emergency if you don't do it to somebody.
See, that's the thing
like,
about
all
Mafia.
you do is you throw comedy shows. Like if you take $20 from somebody for a comedy show, who fucking cares? Like so, like people act like these people who scam people out of $20. They're like the worst people in the world. What about the worst people in the world are fucking managers at Amazon at the warehouses?
Yeah. Well,
like
the
Vinny,
comedians
if you were an Amazon warehouse manager, I could see you really taking a dark, like fucking dark triad turn where you start like really enjoying the suffering that you're inflicting on people. But I just don't know if I've seen that side of you.
I have worked in management in different sales companies, and it's not like that because I work in sales, so it's all about morale building, not tearing people down. So you're talking about somebody who more like manages a bunch of 9-to-5 warehouse workers or fucking factory workers or some shit like that. And I get that.
Yeah, I was just using that as an example.
But I think the people that do think I'm the worst person in the world for that $20 comedy show thing are the people that, want to be comedians, but they can't afford a bag of pretzels, so they can't do the shows, or they don't have the friends to come, or they don't,
Well, here's the thing about those people. The straight fact of the matter is that they shouldn't be doing comedy. If you can't like afford like the drink to go out, you really shouldn't be doing comedy. You should be getting like a little bit of a nest egg of money. Not that it's cool that people are like, creating these like horrible deals. Oh, you got to pay $5 and get a drink. Not that that's good, but if you can't pay for that, then you probably shouldn't be doing open mics, to be honest.
Yeah. And dude, I got to be honest, man. I've been to a lot of open mics in my life, and they're all really bad. Like, I don't mean bad comedy. I mean, they're not a show. So that's why when you would always call my shows open mic, I'm like, dude, but at least it's kind of like it flows the whole way. Like, open mics are just so fucking depressing. And it's just comedians in their notebooks not paying attention to the guy on stage. You know what I mean? So even those two people that were, if let's say it's 2 or 10 people or 12 people in an audience, you're definitely getting more out of that than you would at an open mic.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's why I like doing your shows. Because at least
now, how many of them have you done, honestly?
Probably like, I don't know, 10.
Okay. Have you ever done any in New York with me? Because you lived out there.
No, you were like, so when I moved to New York, you were on what is the term? On the Fritz? Is that what it is? With Al Martin. He didn't like you anymore.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you had a big beef with Al Martin.
You want to know what's crazy? I never met the guy in person. And I messaged him one day. I got to tell you this story. It's interesting. So I messaged him one day and I'm like, hey, man, would love to do a show in New York. And he let me do it. And I made tons of money at his shows. But over a 2 or 3 year period, I bet you 30 of them got canceled, because I was throwing shit against the wall all the fucking time with him. He had time slots open, every day. He had time slots open to do a show. And I was just taking anything I can get, and there were plenty of shows that didn't happen. So I could see where that beef comes from. But for him to dislike me so hard and never meet me or anything, and I always got upset because I'm like, damn, dude, I made this guy a lot of money. Like, I was making a lot of money, And at one point, like I said, I was running his Friday night show in the main room, and he never met me before.
That's insane.
Yeah. That to me was like, maybe that's where it comes from, is so much trust, and like, you know what I mean? Like, he just put like so much trust in me or whatever. But there was a time where Joker's Wild, when it closed down, I got in touch with the old owner's wife, who still owns the rights to the name and the building and everything. And I convinced her to let me buy the club and reopen it myself. And I didn't have the money to do that, but I convinced Al Martin that, you know, if he opened a club in Connecticut, that he'd be, you know, a big player with the Fairfield comedy clubs and the comics and all that shit. And that I convinced this guy who's owned comedy clubs, I don't know, 30 something years, that everybody's making the move to Connecticut. You know, Vinny Brand and all these people are opening clubs here, and you need to do it. And he literally agreed to put up all the money I needed, everything I needed to open the club, and I would run the club. And we had conversations for a couple days. I finally got this woman to agree to meet us. He was supposed to get on a train to come to Connecticut to see the club, and like 2 hours before, she just completely like deleted my number, like blocked my number. I guess she just got to the point where she was like, I'd rather sell my soul to the devil than to Vinny Beedle, you know?
Damn, that's gotta hurt. What happened with the club? Is it still...
Yeah, still in weeds. I was probably the only one who ever possibly had a chance to open the damn place. And I'd been there since I started, and I had some of the best shows of my life at that place. It's a great little club. And I know how to make it work because I'm from New Haven. I probably wouldn't even be living in Florida right now if that place was open. But
so I had a question about something you said. So you did the Friday main room.
I did a lot of other shows
Comedy
too.
Club.
Yeah, I did.
But I'm just curious about that one. So did you have access to like the vast barking network of Times Square? Like
no, I didn't do that. I didn't do that because even Al would tell me that never worked. Like basically he was trying to find a way away from that shit because, you know, Broadway had gotten such a bad reputation in Times Square. You know, there was a lot of people that were selling tickets saying it was, you know, like you see on Crashing on HBO, like, oh, Jerry Seinfeld's going to be there, and he's never there, you know?
Oh, because there was a huge article that came out about it. It was in like the New York Times or something where homeless people, because the people that sell the tickets, they're like scary homeless people that smell like piss. They're like, follow me. Amy Schumer's performing at this club. They're like, oh, okay. But
the only time I ever barked in the city was that show I told you about where everybody canceled. That was at Greenwich Village, and when you're on McDougal Street, I mean, I sold 30 tickets outside for $20.
Oh, dude, I sold. I was all about barking. I'm so fucking good at barking.
Yeah,
I don't even know if you know this about me, Vinny. I can sell, dude. I'm a salesman.
Which I know that about you because when you talk to someone, you can get that sense, but it never made sense why you didn't want to make money doing stand up. You're like so artsy fartsy about it.
Because I just feel bad about taking people's money under false pretenses, and you just
you can't get mad at me because I don't give a fuck. You know what I mean? I come from a family lineage of mafia gangsters and shit, man. Like, you know, like, and you're over here feeling bad, and I can really give a fuck less as long as my light bill's paid. You know what I mean?
Dude, I think barking is the best. Like, that's the best way to not get scammed in the city. If you want to like do comedy in a real show and you don't want to feel like you got scammed, I think barking's like the best option if you know how to do it. If you can't do it, it sucks ass. But I think it's actually a really fair trade because you're out there on the street.
You make money, right? They pay you. Yeah,
that's the thing, dude. Like, so you're on McDougal Street and. So, like, I don't know if you guys know McDougal Street, but you have the Comedy Cellar, you have the Village Browne, which is like another Comedy Cellar institution.
Which, Lane, if you don't know, they're the most prestigious clubs in the city. Like, you know, if you want to get recognized by somebody on Netflix,
$50 every time you perform.
Yeah, because it's not about the money in the city; it's about the exposure of getting seen by, you know, the right.
It's about when you come to New York City to see comedy, and if you want to see the best show, you're gonna go to the Cellar. So everybody's trying to go to the Cellar, and the thing is they have a very specific way to reserve a ticket. So you have to reserve it on the website, and then you have to show up early, and then you put your phone in a bag. It's a huge hassle. A lot of people they just show up, and they don't get to go to the show. So
there's actually a reserve line outside. See, me and my wife we were in New York City for her birthday once, and I knew a kid that was a bar back there. He was one of my bringer comics. I call him bringer comics. You know what I mean? The new guys that were on my shows.
He's your slave. You should call them your slaves.
I paid a lot of those bringer comics. Ones who didn't bitch like you actually would get some money from me sometimes.
Some slaves get paid.
Yeah,
back in the day, they would pay some of their slaves.
Yeah, because they worked real good and they wanted to keep morale up. Right. Yeah. So I actually hit him up and he got us in. We had to stand in like this reserve line just to make sure somebody didn't show up because sometimes people die. They
sometimes people they reserve their ticket, they don't show up. But there's like 2-3 shows a night. And there's going to be like 20 or 30 people wandering around McDougal Street looking for a comedy show because they didn't get in. So all these fucking other clubs, they open up I call them vulture clubs because they just pick off all the dead meat of the neighborhood. Right. So you stand outside of Minetta Tavern which is across from the Cellar. You wait for you just go up to everybody. Hey, you want to see a comedy show? 1 out of every 10 people, they showed up there to see a comedy show. So it's super easy. So you just stand out there, and then at the end of the night,
also the only thing to do in the city, and right over in that area, there's like a jazz club, and that's it. So
yeah, you can see
really
jazz
nothing
club
else to
or
do.
comedy.
Yeah.
So, but it's like, let's say you sell, 10 tickets, two tickets each to 5 couples. You could be like, 2 for 1, so $10 each. That's what I would do.
Yeah.
At the end of the night, you have you get $50. You split the money with the club, and then you get to perform in front of a crowd. But the only shitty thing is it's similar to what you were saying about like how you need a lot of resources, like comedian resources. So they'll put like 6 barkers out on the street, and everybody needs to get their 5 to 10 minutes. So the shows go on for really long. The shows are really bad. And you go on last, and you get to see everybody that you sold the tickets to slowly get angry and walk out of the club. And so you're just waiting to perform, and you're just seeing.
Well, that's why I went to Atlantic City for 3 years, because there's clubs down there that run the same way they do in the city, except they only take people. Like, they'll try you out, but if you can't sell 20 or 30 tickets a day, they don't even want you with them, because they only have 7 guys on each show. You get what I'm saying? So they want to have people that can sell. Now, I was somebody who could sell literally, and I'm not bullshitting you, between 40 and 80 tickets a day in Atlantic City. I remember one time they almost canceled a show, and 80 fucking people showed up that bought tickets from me, and I was making, God, I would say between 200 on a slow day up to 1,500 on busy days. And so I know the kind of money that can be made. I actually moved to Orlando because it's the #1 tourist destination in the world with a really horrible comedy scene. And I don't want to say horrible, because people come here for vacation and everybody loves to spend money in Florida. So there are shows all over the place, and there are comedians that don't work at the business side of things, but they get booked everywhere because comedians are running rooms everywhere, and there are people showing up to all these shows. But they're really just living this mediocre dream out here, like, oh, I'm going to a place with 60 people. I just made $100. I can do that 5 nights a week. Cool. But I moved down here because I'm like, dude, there's $1 million to be made down here, like, easily, because New York City is a $1 million business with stand up. And if New York, the thing is, everybody's caught on to this, but if New York just slowed things down a little bit and COVID was actually their chance to just change a lot, they would have really quality shows. I mean, you really could select good people that would, sell that many. In New York, you could probably sell 20 tickets in a day. I don't know if you've ever done that, but, I remember only one time barking there, and with 30 minutes to go, I got 30 people to come in, because there are certain people that just have a knack for it like that. Also, they have to get over the fear of rejection. I'm sure that stopped you from asking people a lot of times, was being nervous about being told to go fuck yourself.
That's how I became an alcoholic, was barking, because you're just on the street, you're just drinking beer, you're talking to people and shit.
Yeah, it's cool.
You have to get used to constant humiliation. It's something that not everybody can get used to.
What AC taught me, though, is that it's so much easier when people are on vacation. Like,
much easier.
We were selling to people that, like, were looking to spend that money. You get what I'm saying? Like, it was an easy sell, And so for me, I want to go back to New York one day, and I feel like Broadway is my best chance, just because I have done stuff there that it's been I filled that room up many times, and that's actually one of the biggest rooms in New York City comedy, the main room at Broadway, just seating wise. I don't know if you know that they could fit almost 150 people down there. And most New York rooms, what are you fitting in there? 30, 40, 50 people at the most,
I have like 70. I mean, there's
70. There's some good rooms. Yeah, there's some good size
rooms.
There's
Caroline's. Caroline's is another huge one.
Oh, that's
right
a huge
down the
one.
road from
but
Broadway.
That one's tougher to get a third-party gig at. You get what I'm saying? Where you get to keep the whole door, and those are the kind of gigs I do.
Vinny, they got a little bit of quality control over there. You're looking for a place that is
I'll tell you what, dude. It's
not as scrutinized. You're looking for a less scrutinized venue.
Yeah, that's what you'd think, man. But I mean, I pretty much was running Vinny Brand's comedy club when he first opened it in Bridgeport. I've run Joker's Wild. I've definitely worked at more prestigious venues as well. I mean, I've done shows at New York Comedy Club and produced show. They gave me a show once I had to produce on Easter. and it was my first show, and they wanted me to do Easter because they never fucking see me, and it was a day they should be closed anyway. And we ended up getting about 10 comedians and 20 other people, and the guy said it wasn't good enough. But, for me, it was fucking everything because it's Easter Sunday, and I'm barking outside in the city where there's barely anybody walking around,
That's wild.
Yeah. But we still had 20 people in there, so I was doing it every single day. I remember literally telling my family, like, I'm not coming to Easter dinner this year. I'm going to New York to do a show. And they're like, that makes no sense. Like, who was a bunch of fucking heathens at that show?
Yo, I think that's like a big thing that happens for people too, is like when they start doing comedy, they just completely alienate all their friends and family within the first 4 years of them doing comedy, either because you're just blowing off all your plans or you're like suckering them to go to these horrible comedy shows and you condition your friends and family never to pick up your phone calls again.
Do you have people like that in your life that won't come and see you now because of that?
No, because I don't do that to people. Like if I wanted to throw a show next week, I could get 80 people to show up. Just
right. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Even after 10 years of doing stand-up in Connecticut, like if I come back to Connecticut next week, it'll be sold out. And that's why when I moved, I did a show back in Connecticut, and it was only with like 2 weeks promotion, but we did over $1,000 in ticket sales. And so then I was like, okay, well now I can come back home and like basically what I'm trying to say is I was funny, man. I'm still funny, and I'm confident in that. So the people that came and see me, as a matter of fact, there were a lot of people, the comedians that sucked that were on my shows, a lot of people they would bring ended up being people that still follow me to this day.
That's awesome.
So, I mean, I guess I got lucky because I am funny, and guys like Evan Weiss and whoever Julius Donuts or whatever his name is probably aren't, I had a knack maybe not to write jokes down, but the crowd was always laughing with me,
I feel like you do good with middle-aged black couples. I feel like that's a good room.
It was my number one demographic for a long time.
That's your demo, man.
But SCUMTOWN and BAM opened me up to a lot of different people now. I did my first show in Orlando when we first moved here. We had 80 people at this place called Tin Roof in Orlando, and there was legit 20 SCUMTOWN fans there. And I never thought in a million years they would show up, but a bunch of people did, and they were normal people, and I never really understood the show until then. BAM fans as well, man. I get a lot of skater dudes and stuff like that show up to shows now, like guys in their 40s that used to skate and shit and love BAM and just want to hear stories about them.
You have a lot of like Stussy cashiers coming to see your events.
It's that, and then you get really young people. BAM, for some reason, is like this ageless entertainment that he's got like 19, 20, 21-year-olds that are obsessed with him.
Mm-hmm.
And so they convince their parents to bring them to my shows. So I get that. And I would say now it's a lot more diverse, especially when I'm doing shows in Florida, because I did a show, like I have done some shows that I just got booked for, and one of them was for like 100 people that were all like white people from age 70 to like 80, it was just like this old folks home, but it was at a restaurant, Do you know
where I bet you'd be really good? Yeah, I bet you would do so good throwing a prison comedy show. I bet people in prison would really like you.
Maybe. It may be one day I'll end
Aaron
up there.
Berg was doing that for a while. He was doing comedy shows at Rikers Island. Once a week he was doing comedy shows over there. I don't know. Because here's the thing. I'm just trying to
money from that.
Yeah,
though?
Exactly.
Well, here's what I'm trying to think. The reason I say it, I bet you could get a contract from the state. You could be like, this is like a.
I gotta be honest, CJ. I don't really want any government departments looking into me in any fucking way.
But you could say it's
are.
like this is like therapeutic, and it's been proven to lower violence in the institution or something like. You could. I'm just trying to brainstorm here.
I actually think if I ever end up in jail, I'll just take you up on that and just try to organize events that people can not kill me to enjoy. You know what I mean? Like that'll be my bargain. That'll be like my little barter. I'll have people paying me in like, bonbons and stuff just to get stage time and shit. But
because what I'm getting at here, I think you're going to find an angle, not necessarily that, but you're going to find some type of angle and you're going to fucking dive into it. And it might not be the prisons. It might not be the VFWs. It might not be the Dave & Buster's. It's going to be something, and it's going to be extreme. Like maybe you'll come out with your own cruise ship or something like that.
Well, that you're hitting it right on the head though, because I haven't done much in a long time, and I'm feeling every day that I'm not doing this full time anymore, and I'm not like going at it as hard as I used to. I think like, if I could just learn from my mistakes, I can do some really kick-ass things, And so I've already done some really kick-ass things, and I was doing it, the wrong way. So the thing is, though, I don't want to get tempted to start doing things the wrong way just to start doing them again,
Oh, you shouldn't even think about it. You're going to do things the wrong way. I don't even know why you would say that. Like,
oh,
like,
no
I
faith
hope
from
I
CJ.
won't. I hope I won't. Yeah, shut up, dude.
Well, it is a lot harder, is what I'm saying. If I message a comedian, I can't message a comedian the same way I used to. You could literally just Google my name and some horrible shit comes up. So it's a lot harder to convince people of the dream, let's say, but it's not impossible.
You gotta find a new angle. That angle's all cashed in. You can't do it anymore.
You're right.
You'll find some type of angle.
It's just sometimes people get comfortable in their skin,
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to go back to it sometimes so much, but I don't know. We'll see.
You guys start pitching people on like the Vinny Beedle pyramid scheme, where it's like, look, if you get in now, you'll make money and we'll scam people together.
It's so funny you say that, because I was like, Vinny should learn Spanish because he'd be so good at selling Herbalife. You know Herbalife? Because for a while I thought it sounded like you were like selling me some type of like Cutco herbal. During this conversation, that idea like got in my head. I was like, damn, Vinny should learn Spanish.
Well, I am like a walking infomercial, but there's no money in that shit, CJ. You got to find the cash grabs. You got to understand that, shit that is easier to hide under the Uncle Sam's nose is where you want to be. People, Herbalife's probably getting fucking audited every 6 months.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But you could find a way to the radar.
Yeah. I mean, you could find another way to scam immigrants.
Well, that's why I love doing comedy shows, because most people were drunk and didn't even remember who they seen the next day. They're just like, "Wow, that fat guy was fucking funny,"
Have you noticed that nobody ever remembers the comedian from the night before? I've never in my life have I talked to somebody who came to a comedy show where they can remember a single name of anybody that was on any of the shows that they saw.
I always found it so interesting that a lot of the comedians that hated and would talk bad about me literally built up, like, I wonder how they all felt when the Scumbag Vinny things started turning in my favor, because, it actually has made me more popular with regular people, but with comedians, the more they bark about how horrible I am, the bigger the legend becomes. You know what I'm saying? So even when you do it, CJ, you're just adding to it. I actually have hopes that you just go on and tell people how horrible I am for centuries, because eventually it'll come back and it'll just be like this big thing. Like, I'll be some kind of folklore legend down the road.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely are. Like, there are people who have probably thought about killing you and like made a plan. Like, somebody is like, everybody that exists, there's somebody that has thought of them, like killing them. But people like you, people actually like come up with a plan to kill you.
Yeah.
Like I bet Matt Heath wanted to. He learned how to tie a noose so he could kill you outside Joker's Wild or something.
No, Matt, that's one of the guys that actually likes me, to be honest with you.
I just pulled a random
name
out of my ass.
No, I think if anybody was like that, he died already. Like, I have this, when you bring up the charging $20 story, Lane would like this. So I used to do this thing around my birthday where I would like, all of a sudden now we're on like a month tour around Connecticut for my birthday. You know what I mean? So I'm hitting every town, every small town, every city I could. And I had a gig in Waterbury, and there was a comedian named Bob L. Held. Do you remember Bob L. Held, CJ?
No, I don't think I ever met this guy.
Bob L. Held was a guy who was like in a wheelchair, and he couldn't move any limbs or anything. He just could speak into something. You know what I mean? Like, he was pretty much a potato.
Was he like a dirtbag like that other handicapped comedian Richard Sear?
Yes. He was a dirtbag, and he would abuse. He would always post about needing new help at home, like a nurse, but he would abuse the help. And he would hire like some comedians and shit, and he would just abuse the help all the time. And so this guy was fucking like that, But anyways, so one day I'm having a show during my birthday time, and I'm very self-centered at this point in my life, so I'm not thinking about anybody but myself on these days. And I got like 10 comedians on the show, and whoever they bring is just everybody's there for my birthday, you know, fuck everybody, you know. Mm-hmm. So I'm not paying none of these comedians. I'm keeping all the money. And Bob comes rolling up on his chair, and he like wasn't brave enough to say anything to me at the time. But I just seen one person with him, and you know, I said, "Oh yeah, you know, Bob's a comedian," and that's all I said. So that means the door person charges the other person. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So that ended up being like his caretaker nurse.
My favorite part about this story, Vinny, is that you were like, "Yeah, the paraplegic guy in the wheelchair wasn't brave enough to say anything to me."
Well, I'm gonna keep the story rolling here. So I didn't know that, and like he held it in, man. And after the show the next day, like he aired me out, you know, like how could Vinny charge, you know, my caretaker nurse? And my whole argument, which is horrible, is that like just because you're disabled doesn't mean I'm gonna treat you differently. Like,
yeah, you're actually, it would be ableist to not treat them the same.
Yeah, like, fuck you, dude. She got to pay. You don't need her. Just roll in and roll out, and she'll wait in the fucking car. I don't give a shit, you know? Like, so they gave the $20, and he went on this whole tirade, and he ended up writing this website about me. When I say website, it was a website, like, you know, 10 pages he just spent at home probably speaking into talk to text, you know, just coming up with all this shit, you know, about me. And he just kept the investigation going, bro. I remember my biological father, who's also a scammer, and I have nothing to do with it, but we have the same name. He's like a high level scammer. Like we can do a deep dive into him another episode, Lane. And like Bob found him and told him like what I did to him. And, you know, my dad doesn't give a fuck because he just does like worse to people, you know. And like Bob just kept it going to the point where he actually made a t-shirt that said I got scammed by Vinny Beedle. And that t-shirt was like selling. And that is the #1 t-shirt I still sell to this day. So I basically stole Bob's idea, and I'm profiting off
you
it.
stole his design? That's awesome.
No, now it's I got scammed by Scumbag Vinny is my design, you know, but basically the same concept. But I didn't take
God
it
forbid you steal something with your name on it.
I know. Well, I didn't take it until after he died. You know, he ended up dying.
Out of respect, you wait for him to die.
Yeah. And then when he died, I just realized, like, fuck, now I got this evil that I've unfinished business with follow me around in a wheelchair all the time, you know. But Bob was like a piece of shit too, man. He would run down on your wife and talk shit about your mother, you know. Like he was ruthless. But rest in peace, Bob L. Held.
How funny would it be if you're haunted by a man in a wheelchair? Has anybody ever been haunted by somebody in a wheelchair? I feel like that'd be a very scary ghost. You hear the wheel.
The ghost stays in a wheelchair. Like it doesn't get to float.
Yeah. So he can't haunt me if I like go upstairs at like a city hall building or something.
You could hear the squeaky wheels just driving around the
kitchen. I just can't believe I charged like a helpless man's like caretaker.
She wiped shit out of his ass, and imagine how mean he is to her.
Yeah, and then she's got to pay $20 from her paycheck and to get into this show that she doesn't give two fucks about. You know what I think it is?
Reimburse her for that.
Yeah, that's what it is. That was where the whole beef was she was like needed to be reimbursed, and then he felt like nobody wanted to see him do it, and you know. But to be fair, it was one of those shows I remember being like, I never met this guy, so I didn't even know he was in a wheelchair. And he was like, dude, I could bring 20 people to the show. So, you know, when people tell me that, I know they're never gonna, but they at least come short, like, you know, maybe 4 or 5, 6 people come, you know. So I put him on, and then I was like, damn, that's all you brought? Fine, charge her. You know, I didn't give a fuck who it was. It could have been someone giving him his last rites for all I gave a shit.
The only person that this person could pull is somebody who literally was forced to be with him.
Who had to like drive him there.
He's getting paid to be there.
But like, why would you know, I mean, how many, you've only run certain shows, but comedians would tell me all the time, I'll bring a bunch of people and, you know, we'll do this or whatever. But he was one of the worst situations I had because he died. And he actually wasn't the only handicapped comedian I'd worked with. I've talked about this on SCUMTOWN. I worked with like over a dozen of them. And they're some of the most difficult people to deal with, as you can
easiest
imagine.
targets, though, for scams.
No, man, it's really just, it's not. It's always a thing, you know what I mean? You got to make sure they can get into the place and, you know, but he's not the only one that I worked with that died either.
Who else has died?
Jim Browne is a guy that I worked with that he was in an Adam Sandler movie, and I was managing him, and he had no legs.
Oh shit!
He was a heroin addict and a drunk. But yeah, he.
What the fuck?
Yeah, and he got me on the red carpet and me Adam Sandler at the premiere party and all that stuff, and I was basically bringing him McDonald's every day and making sure his laundry was clean and shit like that. Like, you know, that's how I got the gig, bringing him around where he had to go, and then I got him into stand up, and I just remember having a conversation with him. He was my uncle's friend. And I've told people in SCUMTOWN he was my uncle, but he was really my uncle's friend. And he had no real loyalty to me, except I was the only person that would like go get him food and liquor or whatever he needed. And I just remember saying to him, like, one day we were in his hotel and he's like, Vinny, I'm dying. I don't know why I'm laughing. Rest in peace to Jimmy. He's like, Vinny, I'm dying. And I just remember I hadn't gotten my ticket to the premiere party yet for the movie. And I was just like, dude, you cannot fucking die yet. You know, like I've literally
for the Adam Sandler movie.
Yeah, like I've already spent like $170 on McDonald's in the last month and a half. You know what I mean? And like I just felt owed. You know, here this guy's telling me he's dying. I don't know if he met in that moment, like I needed to call for help or what. But I just got mad, and he ended up getting me the ticket. But he's a good guy.
You had like a thought in your head at that moment where you're like, I don't care if he dies, but it's got to be a month from now.
It's got to be after this thing.
Right. That's a dark thought, man. That's
dude, he was sniffing heroin every single day, not listening to nobody when it came to dieting, not taking care of himself, drinking a liter of brandy every day. And when people wouldn't get him what he wanted, he would pay the liquor store like triple just to bring him the brandy. So this $7 bottle of brandy, he's like, I'll give me $30. I'll bring it to me. And they would do it. So I started getting it for him because I'm like, this guy's wasting all his fucking money, you know? And his family didn't give a shit. Go ahead. You look frustrated. You seem frustrated.
Yeah, because it's like, I just can't, I wouldn't feel right about being even around somebody like that. Like, it's so hard for me.
Yeah, well, I grew up around the guy. You know, I grew up around him, so it wasn't like I didn't know him, you know? But yeah, I mean, I grew up around a lot of people that had drug use in their life, so it was more of a normal thing for me. There was that, and there's you get desensitized when you're around it so much. You know, you really start to hate it.
Well, it's not just that you're around it; you're profiting off it.
I wouldn't say that. I didn't make any money off of Jimmy, but I ended up making money because of the pictures I took at that party.
Well, I mean, you tried to though.
Well, again, it was not more about money with Jimmy; it was more about opportunity. Because I actually left Atlantic City where I was making like a lot of money a day to go work with him. It was more opportunity. So I wasn't profiting. I mean, I was trying to use it what you're trying to say is I was an opportunist with it. Like I was trying to use it for something.
But either money or power or something, like you're trying to get something out of somebody in like a super submissive position.
Well, no, because they did hire. So basically, I got a call to get that gig to be his assistant on the set.
Okay, this kind of annoys me about you sometimes because you want to play it both ways. You know what I mean? It's like, dude, just own it. Just fucking own it.
Because there's certain levels to this shit. So it's not like I'm walking around like Adolf Hitler fucking picking out handicapped people to fuck over.
I'm not saying that either. I'm not saying you're
right.
You got a cute little mustache. You don't have one.
What I'm saying is that it'd be better if I explain things so that I'm not trying to get a certain perspective, but if the truth is out there, people will determine it themselves. So if this is how you feel about it, it doesn't mean that's how the next guy's going to feel about it. You get what I'm saying? So it's more about fact with me, and then you determine that. So if you like can't, stomach hearing some of these stories, there are other people who are like, holy shit, dude, this guy can relate to this guy so much.
It's not that I can't stomach them. I'm just listening to what you're saying and trying to think of how I would deal with a similar situation. And it's just so crazy that you're in this position where there's a literal legless man who's drinking himself to death, and you're like, this is a clout opportunity.
Well, because, dude, it was an opportunity of a lifetime. That's not going to come around again.
Right, yeah.
How was he in an Adam Sandler movie? Like, how did that happen?
Exactly. I've told this story before, but let's go over it now. So Jimmy's a legend, and he deserves it to be told on my podcast too. So Jimmy was a longtime friend of my uncle since they were young. He was an electrician at Yale, the college. So he made tons of money his whole life. And he ended up getting diabetes and never did anything about it. And people know what can happen when that happens. You can get really ill. And he was using drugs and alcohol. And my uncle walked into his hotel room one day where he was at a casino, and he was naked in the shower and was dead almost. And my uncle picked him up, brought him to the ER, and they ended up having to decapitate one of his legs because of the diabetes had gotten so bad, and with his drug use and the alcohol and everything, it was so bad. While he was recovering from that, they had to take his other leg. And so he's up in this hospital, Gaylord in Connecticut, and his legs are gone, and he's now in a long-term recovery there. They have to keep him for a few months, And Adam Sandler was looking for a legless man for his upcoming movie because Adam had wrote this script with this guy, and I guess the guy had a legless uncle, and then Adam, had stories about having this legless uncle when he was growing up, so they just it fit in the script somehow. And Adam was shopping around all these hospitals around the country. He found Jimmy. He flew to Connecticut, interviewed Jimmy himself personally for this gig. Jimmy, obviously made him laugh, and so Adam put him on the movie. And I was in Atlantic City working. My Uncle Tom called me and said, hey, Jimmy, said if I never saved his life, he would never have this opportunity. And, he wants me to be his assistant on the set, but I can't do it. I run my own business. So I told him my comedian nephew is been doing this for a long time. Can you give him the gig? And I really didn't want to leave Atlantic City. I was making so much money. So I was like, no. And I didn't really believe my uncle either, or that it would be that big of a thing. And I ended up not doing anything for 2 or 3 months. They filmed the whole movie, and the assistant they did hire for Jimmy was stealing money from him and also fucking with people on the set, and they had to fire him. So a few months later, they called me back, and they were like, he needs to be brought to New York every day for audio reshoots. They had to redo the audio over the video. And Adam Sandler would send this Escalade limo every day to pick us up. And the thing about Jimmy, though, was his family, when Adam was around, would act like they were taking care of him and shit. So Adam never had any worry that Jimmy was living in a hotel or in despair, So when I met Jimmy, I would be like, dude, why don't you just call Adam and tell him, shit's real hard for you. And, because Adam promised him other movie parts and stuff. Maybe he'll get you help. He'll get you into rehab, And he was so worried about Adam finding out who he really was with the drugs and that kind of shit, and that he didn't want to tell anybody. So it was this big thing where if I either did things Jimmy's way or I was out, and he would get someone else. So it was an opportunity where I was like, all right, let me help this guy out for a few months, and then maybe I'll get to meet some cool people, and it worked out like that.
Yeah.
R.I.P. Jimmy.
Yeah. I mean, dude, that's definitely moving forward. I can't see how you can see that as something other than a life lesson where you're even though there is somebody who I have a lot to gain out of being around, my presence is going to do nothing but make this person's life worse by enabling this. It's I don't know. I would just consider that. You know what I mean?
You have such a fine line when you talk about addiction to sounding like you know what you're talking about to sounding like a complete fool. And the reason I say that is because addicts will never get clean if they do not want the help. A grown man doing drugs before I met them has absolutely nothing to do with my presence, being with them in a room, bringing them, that kind of thing. Enabling comes from a far deeper place. You can say his family enables him by trying to make Adam feel like he's okay. You can say Adam's enabling him by taking a man who's sick in a hospital bed that's clearly on medication and giving him $65,000 to shoot a movie. So there are levels to enabling, and I just refuse to be marked as one, especially when it comes to me not giving a fuck about some drug addict and what he does with his life. Because the truth is, I'm not responsible for grown adults, and what they do or choose to do. Whether it's Bam, Artie, and maybe I also don't judge people based on what they do because I might be in the same position in 10 years. So who am I to say, ooh, I couldn't imagine myself around these people, and my presence is enabling them alone, when addicts will do anything to get their shit or do what they got to do. So it really is a personal thing with them, and this whole like concept of, if enablers weren't around somebody, maybe they wouldn't do the certain kind of drug or alcohol they do. And that's kind of bullshit, man, especially when it comes to somebody who has a large amount of money or is in the entertainment business, because that's what we're really talking about. We're not talking about me and my cousin. We're talking about like a guy that large sum of money from a movie. We're talking about Artie Lang, who's a millionaire, Bam, who's a millionaire, and these kind of guys, I would never be able to control their addiction because they can go out and get fucked up the next day, and it's not like I'm selling them drugs either. So what would you say is enabling someone like Jimmy,
Here's the thing too. Like, like I'm just kind of like responding to the stories as you're telling them, and you were there, like what's going on, so you might have a better idea than me. But I would say, like, if you're lying for somebody, like I would definitely consider that a form of enabling. Like if somebody's like all fucked up and they don't want to tell somebody, and you're like, oh no, he's fine, I was with him all day, he was fine, don't worry about it. Like
and there's not anything like that going on, what I mean? Yeah. At that point, working with him, I'm bringing him to audio reshoots where there's like one engineer playing movie scenes and he's in a studio with headphones on re-saying the line, and then we leave, you know what I mean?
Yeah, sometimes people like that just need a friend to be around too, and just having that as like a bedrock is nice stability for them to sort of build off too.
I never really had anything to do with anybody's particular drug use, usually because drugs really gross me out. They really do. They gross me out. If you're around people that do heroin, you're in danger of being arrested just being in the same room as them. So those are the kind of life lessons I would take from it, is that I put myself in harm's way, like for my family legally, like not, I could have lost my life at any time just being associated with these people,
But sometimes the risk is worth it if the reward is high enough. I mean, sometimes in life you have to make those judgments.
If there's an Adam Sandler movie involved.
Yeah, it wasn't even just about Sandler. It was just about doing comedy for so long and being like somebody that people in the scene look to get, gigs, or like like I risen in the scene a little bit, even though some people didn't like me. Like I had, my own clubs or my own shows or whatever, and doing it for so long and not seeing like any real sense of Hollywood at all, or seeing like I could do this for the next 30 years and nobody's gonna fucking see me, like here where I'm at. And I've even done New York. And even that's a facade 90% of the time if you're not in with a certain group of people already, so or a certain image that they want or something. So for me, I think I was just so desperate to either see it through or do nothing at all. And I will say 100% it is coincidence like that I ended up with a line of drug addicts, but at the same time, it is. But I also feel like those are the only people that would work with me because like a lot of them already have agents, so like, or Bam already had an agent, but he's not listening to his agent at this point because his agent doesn't want him doing this shit, so right, I could see how I would enable someone like Bam, Jimmy, and Artie because maybe me having them out there in the limelight is keeping money coming in their pocket, which is keeping drugs and alcohol coming their way. But for me, I never looked at it like that because, each situation's different, but these are all long-time addicts, man. Like I'm not working with someone that started getting high while he was working with me. These are people that are like 10, 20 years into their addiction. And another good point that I really want to express on the show is like, Jimmy was a sad case, and I don't mean to make light on his situation because he was a very sick man, and I actually did grow fond of him, and it did make me very sad when he died. But at the same time, he never listened to anything anybody said. So he was like a train, what do they call it? Like a train car on a track that is going nowhere. Like he was destined to fail. But people like Artie,
tough, man. If they don't want to help,
if they don't want it, no, he would tell me all the time, "I'm dying, man. I'm dying. It's gonna happen. I'm going out the way I want." He already has no legs, so he was already depressed, and he, he wanted to, fuck a lot of the girls on the movie set because they thought he was a cute old man with no legs, but he didn't. He felt like a man still, so he was just going through a lot of depression with that. But when it comes to like Artie and Bam, I can confidently say that, well, me and Artie are still fine, even though he's not really going to be doing anything probably ever again in the entertainment business besides like his podcast once in a while. But I hope he does. But he's just got so much anxiety that can lead to drug use that he gets afraid and just stops. But the last day I ever was with Artie Lang was bringing him to a courthouse where his manager, his family did not want anything at that point. And if I hadn't brought him, he could be still in jail for missing that court date. He was facing very serious charges. And I convinced him after 8 hours of being at the courtroom to pee in the cup. And when he was finally brave enough to do it, they took him away to jail. And he's been clean since that time. So I'm not saying I'm the reason he's clean. He had to put all that work in himself. But he went to court that day and they issued him 5 years of drug court, which means you either stay clean or you go back to jail. It's very strict in New York. Okay. So he was on the run. The night before, I drove from Connecticut to New Jersey to pick him up, and he wasn't there. He was actually with an Artie Lang lookalike in New York City at a hotel getting high off of speedballs. And
amazing.
I tracked him down, and I got him to his court date on time. And if you miss a court date of that stature, they're not going to give you drug court. They're just going to put you in jail. So he definitely caught a huge break by me making sure he was there that day. And that's something he never forgot because we spoke about it later on. Now, with Bam, here's a situation where this dude truly did not want help. He just was getting himself into so many situations. They ended up forcing the issue a little bit, like legally. But they allowed him at his celebrity statue to have a few people to stay in touch with. And I've kept him in that rehab, man, for close to 9 months. Like, I've seriously helped him do that. He's broken out to come see me. I helped get him back in. He's called me numerous times that he wants to get out. I've convinced him to stay. We've had arguments. We've grown very close in that fact because I realized I was never going to get what I was due if he's the way he is anyway. So
I'm just picturing Bam Margera. He rips a fucking water fountain out of the ground, throws it at the window, jumps out, runs to you. You know what I mean?
He did hop a fence in Tampa and left a rehab to come see me in the middle of the rain. So he is like that.
And I think you do this, so don't take this as like you do this, but I think sometimes it's good for you to remember the universe, in order to take from it, you have to give to it. Yeah. And I think you should just always keep that in mind, because I think if you forget that, you could lose sight. You could take too much, and then all of a sudden you're not being given anything. You know what I mean?
You're right.
You have to make that. You have to make it a circular relationship.
Yeah. And that's why I just ended up, well, I mean, I got to be honest, the beginning of a relationship, I didn't want a friendship with him. I really just wanted the money and that kind of thing.
And it doesn't work like that. That's
no, it doesn't. It doesn't. And it did, man, for a lot of money and a lot of time in my life. And it hurt me for a while. But when everybody else in Bam Margera's circle was telling him to get away from me as fast as they could, he's the only one that would come back and try to mend things and make things work with me. So that meant a lot to me that he didn't give up just because I made some mistakes, mainly because of the mistakes he's made. So a lot of people hit him with that tough love and realized they had to give up on him for him to get better, but it wasn't even like that, man. He really just wanted people supporting him and that would be there for him, especially when the Jackass thing, because he never really changed his mind what he wanted out of his career. It's just that Jackass gave him such hard stipulations for the last year and a half, and I've only known him for 3 years. So the first year we're together, it goes toxic because he's fucked up. The next year and a half he's getting ready for, Jackass. In the last, 6 to 9 months is us trying to get him better. So I do believe that I have given that back to him because I've spent countless hours trying to help this dude, and I've got nothing from it. As a matter of fact, when it comes to Bam, I've lost tons of money. And gained fame, gained, what do they call it? Clout, notoriety, that kind of thing. But I believe I'm in that process of giving back as far as me and his relationship. Now, as far as the comedy scene, I may never be able to make up for the things that I've done wrong in the general comedy scene, but I already may have done something if people have learned from what I did and hated it and done it better their way, then I've already have contributed.
You know what you can do? Here's an idea for you. So all the people that you've wronged, you should make a reality show where you go to all these people and you try to right all these wrongs. And you get content out of it. How good would that be?
Right.
I'd love that shit.
Well, what's funny is in the last few years, I have done a bit of that, and it's basically to the people that want to make amends. Like, you can't force them. Some people, like, I talked to a guy that lives in Cleveland now that used to do my comedy shows in Connecticut, and he did a contest for me that was like a $500 prize. And I think he won it, but by the end of it, I don't even know if I could pay him at all, or I only gave him half, or I don't know what the fucking deal was. I really don't remember. But he listens to this show now, and he wrote all over. He's loving the show. You know, he just can't believe that, you know, he got scammed by Vinny, and years later it's blown into this huge thing. And so he really likes the show. But, you know, I told him, I was like, hey man, we just talked a few weeks ago, and I was like, I really appreciate you supporting the show, and he's really active in the comments. And I said, you know, just let me know how much money I owe you from that contest. I thought you were funny and you're a good guy, and, you know, I'll just send it to you. And he's like, dude, don't even worry about it. The money is not as valuable as the story. So there are people that really just want the story. You know, it's almost like it's not just that one guy. I've spoken to many people like that, where they're just like, nah, man, I'd rather have the experience. I'd rather be able to talk to people about it and say that Vinny burned me at some point.
Yeah, so true. So true. It's like,
well, you wouldn't. I mean, if I sent you $50 right now, you would still rather love to tell people about the experiences with me rather than having that money. You know what I mean?
Well, thinking about us screaming at Liam trying to get him out of the bathroom, that's more valuable than, you know, making $50.
I do look at your, like, I've always talked to you about this business, and I do value your opinion because I think genuinely you're a really smart guy. I just believe that there are a lot I will listen to you about, but when it comes to addicts, dude, with fans alone that I'd never talk about, I have so much experience with drug addicts that I refuse to take any responsibility for their stupidity. If I choose to be around them, I mean, that's my problem at the end of the day, you know, but at the same time, I've never judged anybody, whether they're a paraplegic from the neck down, whether they're a heroin addict, whether they got one leg, two legs, it doesn't matter to me. No legs, you know, so I've always been...
It's not about... It's about... what is your presence doing in somebody's life? And it's like, if somebody's in a position where they need help, you should probably be trying to make their life better somehow, is all I'm saying. I'm not trying to say anything more than that, but it's like, some people are clearly in a super submissive position, and you should just, you know, do what you can to help them.
Well, I think I did that with Artie, and I think I'm doing that with Bam. It sucks that I couldn't really help Jimmy like that, but at the same time, I feel like he was even far gone before even getting the movie thing. I almost think the movie thing was keeping him alive at that point, you know, just hoping, you know. And I remember Adam even telling him, you're going to be in my next 3 movies. And the very next movie was like Murder Mystery or something, and he wasn't in it. And Jimmy just took that so to heart. It was like heartbreaking for him, you know. But like I said, I remember that conversation where he told me he's dying, and I say lightly, oh, you can't die till the premiere, because that's what I remember, because I'm so self-centered. But he was almost telling me, like, I'm dying, dude. Like, this is happening regardless. If you're in my life or whoever's walking through that door, like, it's going to happen, you know?
Yeah. I'm not trying to be judgmental. I don't know. I'm just trying to give you something to chew on.
No, that's the whole point of you being here. I knew that would happen. I just figured it would be more about trying to improve myself as a producer and, like, you know, comedian, not, you know, being a life coach or some shit.
The bodies you've got.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing, too.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah, I mean, look at Snoop Dogg, dude. He fucking literally.
Well, you feel the same way. If you listen to the SCUMTOWN episode I was on, and I'll let you get back to that Snoop Dogg thing, but you literally have the same take that Nick Mullen has. And a lot of it comes from your empathy. Oh, I don't want to call it empathy, is when you go through it, the same thing other people did. So you're not an addict, but sympathy. Like, you have sympathy.
I was an addict.
You were an addict.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you didn't even ask.
Well, we're an addict, but you are an addict. That's the whole thing, right? You're an addict, but you're recovering, right? Like, because the thing with addicts is you'll always want to do. What was your drug of choice?
Booze.
Okay. You got really bad with it for a while?
Yeah, you know what? I started sleepwalking. I started cooking pasta in my sleep. I almost burned the apartment down.
Really?
Yeah, oh yeah.
So how long have you been clean off alcohol?
2 years.
Congratulations.
Thanks, man.
So, but with that, like you said, you were an addict. I mean, did you go to meetings, or is that just something like you did yourself?
I did one meeting, and then I just kind of
did it yourself.
I've just been able to do it myself.
Toughed it out. That's why you say that, though, because a lot of people that are in recovery have to admit they're still an addict in order to stay that way, because the thought process is, you know, I want to do it, I just can't, because it'll fucking burn my house down. You know what I mean? Like, do you ever have times where you still want to drink, you know, and you just know you can't?
Oh, I do, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so you are still an addict.
Drink. Yeah, 100%.
So
100%.
I would never. These are the kind of talks I would have with guys like that, and it's not like I'm sitting there telling them, "Hey, you should have another drink." I'm just more like saying, "Hey," like I did have those kind, hey, this is what you should do, but at the same time, I'm not going to tell you what to do, because here I am already trying to. The whole purpose of being around these people is trying to navigate their career a little bit,
Right.
And most people in entertainment are addicted to something, CJ. Like it's prevalent with anybody. It's just how bad it is, and how people, other agents and things, can wrap it up under the rug, or what do they call it? Sweep that under the rug. But no,
Vinny,
I did not know that.
Speaking of wrapping it up, I got my panel I got to do at 10:30.
Well, thank you for stopping in, CJ. I appreciate it, my friend.
Dude, Vinny, I always love talking. I always love talking to you.
Mad respect, dude.
Thank you for having me on. Let's chat again soon.
Sounds good, bro.
All right, take it easy, man.
Hey, how do we find you on Twitch?
Oh,
wherever you go to stream.
Follow my Twitch. I'm always streaming. It's Sorry CJ Browne on Twitch. I'm live almost every day, so give me a follow and you'll catch me there.
Sounds good, man.
All right,
Talk to you later.
Seems like a nice guy, Vinny.
Oh, he's really good.
One of your old friends.
Yeah, he's cool, man. He's learned a lot. Like, it's weird because I didn't actually think a lot of his old feelings would come up because of what he's been through. But I think a lot of the addiction stuff touched at home with him because he is an addict, and we found that out at the end. But I just have to tell people when they're wrong. Like, I'll let people on here all day and tell me where I fucked up in the business, but that enabler shit gets real old real quick, Lane. It really does. Especially when you've been around as many addicts as I am. It's almost like they got to take accountability for themselves at some point,
Yeah, at a certain level, I really don't have any sympathy for people that are addicts because, like you said, they're just going to keep doing it regardless of if you put on the big show for them or not.
Right. And even CJ, and I had this weird feeling that even Nick Mullen had gone through some kind of like addiction at some point, because when they get real like that, when they get real defensive about it, and it's almost like it's coming from personal feelings, But CJ...
Is that because Nick Mullen looks like he got his legs amputated, or a different reason?
I don't know if you've seen this week. He said he would come down to Orlando and do a show with me. So that is what got me motivated to want to get back on stage again. But I wanted CJ to come on because I felt like he would be able to touch more on his experience as a promoter and why what he does doesn't work. But people who work in the comedy business, when they come talk to me, they cannot wait to talk about, their experience with me and what I'm doing wrong. And, but as much as I love CJ, he was throwing shows in New York for like a couple years where the mission was free every show you did. And it just made no sense. It's like, why are you doing this? But that's coming from someone like me who likes to make money doing comedy, not just doing it to do it,
It was like, what? Were they buying drinks so the club was happy?
I guess, and maybe CJ just thought that, at his level, he shouldn't be charging people for a show, but why is it that, I can't have the supreme confidence to say, I think I'm worth $20 alone. And that's really been my basis. And that's the other thing is comedians will never come out and say how funny I am. But the truth is, like, how am I been able to do this so long and charge that much money per ticket? Me and Bam were charging 100. I charge 30 now. I don't even charge 20 anymore.
I think that's something that we need. We need some new stand-up from Vinny Beedle.
Definitely
for the upcoming shows that you want to do.
Yeah. I mean, but the thing is, dude, and you've never really seen me perform live. Every act I do is different because I'm 100% improv. So I'm just doing everything off the top of my head, interacting with the audience, and
you and Ian Ellis.
Yeah, Ian's like
Masters
that too.
of improv.
Yeah, that's probably how he's been able to continue to do it so long and not completely wanted to shoot his head off. As a matter of fact, after I talked to Ian, I started to deep dive into him a little bit, and I think I just misunderstood the kid the whole time. I always look through everybody's career through my eyes. You know what I'm saying? And I started to look at it through his a bit, and I still don't want him to quit, but if he does, I just got to the point where I don't even give a shit. But
I think he'll still be doing something. He's having a good time with his YouTube videos.
That's great. I want him to, man. I think he's.
Something
about him.
If you go to Chicago and throw a show like you said you were going to, he'll show up. He won't be able to resist.
Yeah, I would like that. If you listen to the show from an outside view, it says scamming with Vinny, but really it's just talking about my old shit I used to do. And you know what I'm saying? It's not like I'm talking about any active scams I have going on. Sure, I'm trying to fuck with Habibi and stuff like that, but it's more of me trying to show people, I guess, under the character kind of, like what really is the truth, like my truth, like what's my truth about things. My truth is the shows I threw weren't open mics, but CJ's been telling people for the last 10 years that I charge 20 open mics, but I wouldn't have an open sheet that anybody could just sign up for. It was a showcase with people I would find at open mics, or not even. It's not like I even went to open mics and scouted people out. I was just messaging whoever the hell was in a comedy group on Facebook. Like if they suck,
a lot of
I'll make fun of them.
I've heard say bad things about you, Vinny, say bad things because they something they were talking to you on Facebook. It all comes back to Facebook, where people seem to really hate you.
Yeah, Facebook is where I ran a lot of my business for a long time. Oh my God, how much money I've made off of Facebook, I can't even tell you. It's unbelievable. But if you have heard anything negative, if any of those people were approached by me now and they gave me 2-3 days to talk to them, I can guarantee you they'd be signing back up. Because the people that I chose to pay me aren't people that are going to make it in this business.
Well, especially now, someone's got to bring comedy shows back.
There aren't as many. There definitely aren't as many.
You're only getting paid $50 to do the Cellar in New York. It's bad out there, Vinny.
It is bad out there. But, it's kind of like the people who ran Batman out of Gotham for a little while. And then when he was gone, they started wishing he'd come back. I'm like what do they call that? Anyways,
the anti-hero.
The anti-hero, exactly. I was still providing, and I'm telling you, a lot of the better shows in Connecticut are guys that like seen me do what I was doing, and they're like, no, we'll never do it like that. But if we do it like this consistently, we'll be great. And you know what I mean? So they would have never even got that way had they not had to run in with me.
The comedy's dead, Vinny.
Yeah.
It's all podcasting now.
Yeah, it is.
We're doing it. We're even doing it.
But I want to bring comedy.
Get Ian Ellis out. We got to get people to do comedy shows again. Comedy's got to come back. It was good once.
It was. And if I can get back to doing these shows again, I think we'll have a lot more content coming from it. And, so we'll get to it. But hey, man, I think that's it for today. CJ came in and invaded the show, cut Lane's voice off completely. But CJ,
it was good. I spent all day talking at work, so.
But until then, Lane, thank you again, guys. Go check out Lane on Ian Ellis LLC. I believe now, what are we down to 6 weeks left?
Actually, turns out we miscounted, so 10 episodes left as of this moment.
Dude,
Ian's not good at math.
We're
counting up.
I am starting to not believe this shit.
Yeah, people are saying we're never going to end, so
that's
we'll see
a good
what
thing.
happens.
Let's hope that doesn't happen. So check out Lane on that show. Please subscribe to our channel, like, and comment. And that's it, folks. I appreciate your time coming back with us and hanging, and we'll see you again soon. Peace out.
Keep scamming everybody.